Let's move on now to the Minnesota Vikings and their free agency moves and how this will affect what we think that they'll do in the draft. But before we do that, if you have not already, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notified when Ryan and I create new content. We have a goal of getting subscribers, and as of Sunday night, April 2nd, we are at 941 last time we checked. So help us reach our goal. We are almost there, 59 away if my C+ math helped out in school. So essentially, and if you're watching this video over 1,000, still subscribe. It's the easiest way to help out our channel. And I will just tell you, our next goal will be to get to 2,000. So just help us on in that process. So, Ryan, the Minnesota Vikings, NFC North division winners, tough loss in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about their season and where it just seemed like it was like Justin Jefferson or bust. It just seemed like that he was by far like just carried that team. Not saying that Kirk Cousins didn't have a good season or that Dalvin Cook didn't, but there was clear deficiencies on the defensive side of this ball, and teams just kept letting the Vikings find ways to win games. And so now they come into this offseason, and one of the things they will note, their defensive coordinator signing Brian Flores, I think huge increase.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's going to come in. I think he's going to transform this defense. However, they do have a couple of key losses on the defensive side of the ball, which is not going to be off to a good start. What are some of those losses?
So starting off, the biggest one is Dalvin Tomlinson, the defensive lineman. That's a really big loss.
Yeah.
And then Patrick Peterson and Eric Kendricks are both moving on from the team as well.
Yeah.
And I think as far as a major, Cameron Dantzler left, but he hasn't really been too involved in this defense anyways. So, yeah, I mean, that's not a good start for a defense that was already really depleted. They didn't really bring in too many pieces on the defensive side of the ball to replace them. They did. Marcus Davenport was a big signing from the Saints. However, he was hurt for parts of last year, and I think that's a little bit of a risk, actually, in my opinion, for the amount of money that they gave him. So,
yeah, I will say he is 27, so there is there's still some youth there, especially.
They did bring in Byron Murphy as well, which I think is that's a good signing. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Dean Lowry, also from the Packers, stealing a good player away from the division. So I think that's the synopsis of what they did on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they didn't do too much. They lost Adam Thielen, which he looked like a shell of himself last year.
Yeah.
And then they brought in Josh Oliver, the tight end. They lost Irv Smith to the Bengals. And then
that's fine though.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have TJ Hawkins. They have TJ Hawkinson now. So
yeah. And so that's kind of that's the big moves there on the offensive side of the ball. So all in all, I think they had an okay free agency. I just think they definitely lost a little bit more than they brought back. And yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And
no, I'm very curious on how the Brian Flores addition helps out with this defense, because what he did down in Miami, he was able to transform that defense. I think they also were able to draft better. And if they can do that, and they just need help on every single level of the defense. And so I think starting with Marcus Davenport, I think is a good start. And I think that he would be able to provide some good pressure on a division where there are some potent offenses in the NFC North division. Lions, obviously, first one come to my mind. If Jordan Love can connect with Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, these receivers, and you still got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in that backfield of the Packers, that's still a tough offense. And if DJ Moore now with the Chicago Bears and Justin Fields, I think that offense could potentially take off. So you're going to need a guy that can get after the quarterback and be in the backfield quickly.
Yeah, no. And then on the flip side of that, I think you're going to need some solid corners. And that was one of the things I was hoping that they would address in free agency, either via trade or signing. Just going and getting some good depth at corners, and then possibly investing an early draft pick in this corner class.
Yeah.
But they didn't really do that. I don't see – they lost Pat Pete, and then they didn't really replace him with anybody.
They do have – I'm curious to see how Andrew Booth Jr.'s
Yeah, he was injured most of last season.
Yeah, and so I'm curious to kind of see more of him. And so I think that was a big loss because he had a lot of talent coming out of college. So
yeah,
one of the things, and normally with our other one, especially in the NFC North, we talk a lot about the additions or trades or those other topics. But here, though, we're kind of going straight into the draft because with where they're picking, they can go so many different directions, especially with their team needs and on who is going to be available. To me, honestly, the first spot that comes out is either corner or edge rusher. Those are going to be the ones. If Deontay Banks is there, even though teams might take him there. I think Joey Porter won't be there. And at the same time, I also think about it. Nolan Smith might not be there. Miles Murphy might not be there. So it's like, those are the types of guys who I think that if one of those guys is there, then I think then that was a good draft. Then they can evaluate, like select which player they like the most instead of just settling for a guy.
Yeah. And to me, they don't have a ton of draft capital, and so I think moving up is kind of ruled out. So it's going to be whoever comes to them at 23.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the range of guys that they're looking at. Miles Murphy to me would be a really good Daniil Hunter replacement. He is that 3-down edge player, and I really like his tape.
Well, and he's young
they
too.
just
I
need
remember
so much.
He's young too. I remember. I think he'll be. I think he'll still be 21 when he gets drafted. If not, or he would have just turned 22. And I just talk about that just because there's extra youth, to go along. Then during his 5th year option, he'll be 26, 27. And so another, I think, sneaky option here, as you mentioned with the draft capital, is a trade back situation.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that Bijan Robinson is going to go in the first round. And they're kind of in that spot. If a team that was very early in the second round maybe wanted to trade up, give a couple extra draft picks, go get a guy, Cardinals, Texans maybe. Or if there's some guys who wanted a receiver as well, teams that were picking later in the first round wanted a receiver and can trade up, get some extra draft picks from there. That also seems like a likely option for me as well.
Yeah, and I think that would be a great move because they need so much. And this is a pretty deep class at edge rusher and corner. And so if they could move back and address both of those in the second round and then have an additional pick as well to address something else like the linebacker position or this interior offensive line, I think that would be a fantastic draft for them because they haven't really been able to do a whole lot here in free agency.
Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting. It feels really weird with the Vikings, but just saying that like they went
13-5.
They went 12-5 last year, or 13-4. I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but just now knowing like it's not being as optimistic on about this team.
And I think if we go back and look at their season, I don't want to say they had some fluky wins.
Oh, they had some fluky wins. Like I will say that. Like go look at that Bills game. That's a fluky win. They should not have won that game. The Colts game, they should not have won that game.
Yeah. Even like you go back to the Patriots game, that game was much closer, and I would not consider fluky, but that was a coin flip game, right?
Yeah. It could have gone.
Make a stupid mistake by running into the kicker, and then they go down and get a touchdown, and then that's game. So there's a lot of wins on the schedule that I think you look at and you're like, you can't count on that consistently. Mm-hmm. And I think you look at some of the losses that they've had as well. And I just think this team is either plateauing or slightly going down, especially then you look at the rest of the division, specifically the Bears and Lions, and it's like they're rising up to that level as well.
Yeah.
So,
see, I would say that the Vikings are plateauing while the Lions are passing them.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. And so I think that just sets them up for another rocky 2023 where it's like they're going to need some luck they're going to need a few more fumbles on the goal line to be where they were in 2022. So I think that's going to wrap up the Minnesota Vikings offseason review. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and smash that bell so you can get notified whenever Tyler and I post new content. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the NFL draft. We are very close to hitting that goal. So if you could help us reach that, that'd be very much appreciated. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.